Pretend you're with me. The billionaire doctor begged, but one secret could destroy them. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. It's a cold, wet night in Manhattan, the kind where the rain feels like pins on your skin and the wind pushes cheap umbrellas inside out. Outside Cole Heart Institute, a private hospital that looks more like a luxury hotel than a place where people fight for their lives. Blacktown cars line the curb, headlights cutting through the drizzle as chauffeurs rush to open doors for people in designer gowns and tuxedos. Inside, a charity gala is in full swing. Crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing something soft and expensive, champagne bubbles catching the light as New York's elite pretend they care more about saving lives than signing deals. But our story doesn't start with them. It starts with the girl weaving between their polished shoes, balancing a heavy silver tray like it's the only thing standing between her and total collapse. Her name is Mia Tran. Her black catering uniform is still damp at the cuffs from the walk from the subway. The cheap flats she bought on sale are already rubbing blisters into her heels, but she keeps moving, shoulders squared, jaw set. $40 for this shift, maybe a few extra in tips if she's lucky. $40 that needs to stretch into groceries, rent, and a payment on a bill she doesn't say out loud, even in her own head. "Excuse me, miss, over here." A woman in a glittering gold gown snaps her fingers without looking, wrist heavy with diamonds. Mia pivots smoothly, forcing a polite smile, offering her the tray of champagne flutes. The woman takes one, then laughs a little too loudly at something her friend says about people who don't belong in rooms like this. Mia pretends she didn't hear it. She's gotten good at that. Pretend the words slide right off. Pretend the ache in her feet and the burn in her chest are just background noise. Pretend she isn't counting every minute on the clock. She moves toward the center of the ballroom, near the glass wall that looks out over the city. The hospital logo, Cole, glows in white letters on the opposite building, towering over Manhattan like a promise or a threat, depending on who's looking. Mia refuses to look at it too long. She's seen that name before, printed in black ink on a piece of paper that changed everything. Just seeing the letters makes her throat tighten. "Mia, watch it." Her supervisor hisses as he passes by, eyes sharp. "These people's outfits cost more than your car." "I don't have a car," she mutters under her breath, but she keeps her voice low, head down. She turns too quickly, trying to dodge a man backing up with his phone out, and the edge of her tray clips a chair. The world slows for a second. The tray tilts. Crystal rattles. Liquid flashes gold in the chandelier light. Then 3 glasses slide off the silver tray and crash into the marble floor, champagne splashing across the hem of a pale pink couture dress. The sound shatters the polite noise of the room. Conversations stumble. Heads turn. The woman in the pink dress looks down at the ruined fabric like it's a crime scene. "Are you kidding me?" she gasps, outrage rising with every syllable. "Do you have any idea how much this dress cost?" Mia's heart slams against her ribs. I'm so sorry, ma'am." She stammers, already dropping to her knees, grabbing napkins, fingers shaking as she tries to blot at the puddle spreading across the floor. "I'll clean it up right away." "You'll do more than clean it up," the woman snaps, stepping back like Mia's existence is contagious. "Get your manager. Right now." This is why they shouldn't let just anyone in here. That last line lands like a slap. Just anyone. The supervisor rushes over, face already stormy. "Mia, what did you do?" he demands, not even waiting for an explanation. "I told you we can't afford mistakes tonight." He forces a tight smile at the woman in pink. "Ma'am, I apologize. This will be handled. She'll be removed from the event immediately." Mia freezes, still on her knees, piece of glass in her hand, a hot flush crawling up her neck. Removed means no pay. No pay means something else doesn't get paid. That's not an inconvenience for her. That's a disaster. "Please," she says quietly, looking up at her supervisor. "It was an accident. I can finish the shift." Security." The supervisor calls, cutting her off. Two security guards in dark suits start walking toward them from the edge of the room. And that's when he moves. From the far side of the ballroom, a tall man in a perfectly tailored black suit steps away from a cluster of donors and board members, his expression unreadable, but his gaze locked on the scene unfolding. People instinctively make space for him as he walks, like the air shifts around his presence. Omar, one of the bartenders, whispers to another staffer, "That's him. Dr. Cole, the guy whose name is on the building. Adrian Cole, billionaire doctor, cardiothoracic surgeon turned hospital heir. The man whose smile has been on magazine covers, whose innovations save lives in operating rooms most people could never afford to enter. The man Mia has only ever seen on posters in subway stations and late-night news segments she can't afford to care about. Now he is walking straight toward her. She keeps her eyes down, focusing on the broken glass in her palm, willing her hands not to shake. She doesn't want him to see her face. She doesn't want him to see anything. The security guards reach for her arms. Before they can grab her, a hand closes gently but firmly around her wrist. Warm. Steady. That's enough. A calm, low voice says. The room falls even quieter. Mia looks up, and there he is. Up close. Adrian Cole is all sharp angles and quiet intensity. Dark hair slightly, much like he's run his hand through it one too many times. Gray eyes taking everything in at once. He looks at the shattered glass, then at Mia on her knees, then at the terrified supervisor. What's going on here? He asks, voice still soft, but there's a thread of steel beneath it. The woman in pink jumps in first. Your staff ruined my dress, she announces. She was careless. I demand she be fired and that your hospital compensate me. This event is supposed to be about standards, isn't it? Adrian's gaze flickers to the champagne on the floor, then to the way. Mia is clutching the napkins, trying to make herself smaller. Something shifts in his expression, so subtle only people watching closely would notice. We'll handle the dress, he says smoothly, but his eyes don't leave Mia's. You. Stand up. For a split second, Mia thinks he's about to make an example of her in front of everyone. Her legs feel like concrete, but she pushes herself up slowly, keeping her gaze at his tie, anywhere but his eyes. His hand is still around her wrist. He leans in, just enough that only she can hear him over the buzz of whispers. Pretend you're with me, he murmurs, voice barely above a breath. Just go with it. Mia blinks, startled, finally meeting his eyes. They're steady, intent. Before she can process, he turns with her at his side, sliding his hand down from her wrist to lace his fingers through hers like they've done this 1,000 times. His other hand comes up to rest lightly at her back, guiding her toward the center of the room, toward the people whose opinions can decide the fate of entire hospitals with a single vote. There seems to be a misunderstanding, Adrian says, raising his voice just enough for the nearby circle of board members and donors to hear. She's not just staff. He lets the sentence hang, lets their curiosity spike. Mia feels every eye on her, heat roaring in her ears. Not just staff. For a heartbeat, the whole world holds its breath. And in that suspended moment, she sees it, the name on his ID badge gleaming under the glass chandeliers. Adrian Cole, MD. The same name printed months ago at the top of a cold, official document she will never forget. A death certificate. One secret already sits between their joined hands, waiting to explode. For a long second, Mia just stares at the badge, at the letters ADRIANCOLE, while the room buzzes around them like a hive. Her fingers are still laced with his, but everything inside her goes numb. Adrian Cole. The name at the top of the death certificate that sits in a worn folder in her tiny apartment. The name the hospital's lawyer repeated over and over when he said there was no proof of wrongdoing, only a tragic outcome. The man who signed off on the surgery that took her little brother's life is standing beside her, pretending she is his date. Is there a problem? The woman in the pink dress demands, snapping Mia back to the present. Adrian's hand tightens slightly at her back. He turns to the woman with a calm that looks effortless and expensive. No problem at all, he says. There was a spill, and my girlfriend was trying to help your dress. We will of course cover any cleaning or replacement costs. The word girlfriend makes Mia's breath catch. It echoes off the marble and glass. The woman blinks, recalibrating. Now that she hears the word and sees his hand on Mia's waist, the math shifts in her head. Your girlfriend. she repeats slowly, eyes flicking up and down Mia's simple uniform like they cannot compute. Around them, whispers start to stir. The supervisor goes pale. Dr. Cole, I had no idea she was with you. I am so sorry. I did not mean to. Adrian lifts one eyebrow, just enough. You were about to fire her for an accident that happened because the ballroom is overcrowded and your staff is overworked, he says. His voice is still even, but there is a controlled edge now. That is not how we treat people in this building. Not in my name. The supervisor stammers something that sounds like an apology. The security guards hover awkwardly, hands dropping away. Mia feels all of it from the eye of the storm. She feels the shift in how the room looks at her. How in one sentence, she went from invisible girl carrying drinks to someone their billionaire doctor is holding on to. She knows none of it is real. She also knows she cannot afford to fight it right now. So she does what she has been doing for months. She pretends. She forces herself to stand a little closer to him, to let her body angle toward his like this is normal, like they have done this before. She feels the warmth of his palm through the thin fabric at the small of her back. It is fine, Mia says quietly, looking at the woman in pink, then at the supervisor. Her voice is steady, which surprises her. I am sure it was just a misunderstanding. I will make sure your dress is taken care of. Adrian nods once, approving the performance. He leans in, his breath brushing her ear for a second. You are doing great, he says softly. The band starts to play again, trying to smooth over the tension. Conversations pick back up, but the energy in the room has shifted. People keep glancing at them, at Mia, at the billionaire doctor with the unknown girlfriend. As they walk away from the broken glass, Mia feels like she is leaving one life behind and stepping into a scene that was never meant for her. Thank you, she says under her breath when they reach a quieter corner near the window. She tries to slide her hand from his, but he does not let go yet. You did not have to do that. You are right, he answers. His eyes search her face in a way that makes her feel seen and exposed at the same time. I did not. But I also did not have to watch you get dragged out of here for doing your job. He finally releases her hand, and she immediately tucks it against her tray, needing the anchor. Why me? Mia asks before she can stop herself. There are plenty of people here you could pretend to be with. She hopes the question sounds casual, but inside, her mind races. Why me, when I am the last person in this building who should be this close to you? Adrian glances over her shoulder at the board members watching them from across the room, at the donors with their careful smiles and their sharper knives. Because you looked like you did not belong to them, he says simply. And right now, I need at least one person in this room who is not playing the same game they are. The answer knocks the breath out of her a little. He turns back to the crowd, to the speeches he still has to give, to the promises he will sell on stage later about saving lives and expanding wings and investing in care. I have to go up soon, he says, straightening his tie. After that, this will blow up online, and my public relations team will probably have a heart attack. Someone from my office will find you so we can talk properly. He holds her gaze for a beat, like he wants to say something else, then lets it drop. For tonight, just keep pretending. It will make things easier for both of us. Easier, Mia thinks bitterly, watching his back as he walks toward the stage. Nothing about this is easy. Not the memory of fluorescent lights and surgical consent forms. Not the sound of her mother's sobs in a too small waiting room. Not the way the letters COLE glow over this building like a brand. She adjusts her grip on the tray, forcing her hands to stop shaking. She blends back into the flow of servers, invisible again except for the occasional double take from a guest who recognizes her from that brief moment at his side. Underneath the noise of the gala, underneath the string music and the clinking glasses, another sound beats in her chest like a second pulse. It is the sound of opportunity, of danger, of something opening that she cannot yet name. Because if the man whose name is on her brother's death certificate wants to talk to her, really talk to her, then for the first time since Daniel died, Mia Tran might have a chance at something she has been denied again and again by polite voices and closed doors. The truth. The next morning, Mia wakes up to her cheap prepaid phone buzzing against the chipped nightstand. For a second she thinks it is the hospital calling about another bill. But then she sees the screen and her stomach drops. A coworker from the catering company has sent her a link and 3 texts in all caps. She taps it with a shaky thumb. A gossip website loads, full of ads and flashing banners. And right there at the top is a photo from last night. The headline reads, Billionaire heart surgeon debuts mystery girlfriend at charity gala. In the photo, Adrian stands in his black suit, composed and powerful, and beside him, in a plain black uniform and a look of stunned deer in headlights, is Mia. His hand is at the small of her back, fingers spread like he is anchoring her. Her co-worker's messages pop up underneath. Girl, is that you? Since when do you date Adrian Cole? Are you quitting catering or taking us all with you? Mia locks the phone and lets it fall onto the mattress. For a moment, she just sits there in the dim light of her basement apartment, concrete walls close, and the air smelling faintly of detergent from the shared laundry room next door. Her rent envelope is taped to the back of the door with the due date circled in red marker. On the small table, the folder with Daniel's documents waits, the death certificate on top. Billionaire heart surgeon. Mystery girlfriend. It feels like the universe is playing a cruel joke. By the time she finishes her shift at the grocery store that afternoon, the story has spread. 2 more blogs have picked it up. The photos are grainy, but the narrative is shiny. Adrian Cole, the nation's favorite life-saving bachelor, has a secret girlfriend. Sources say she is not from his usual social circle. No one has called her yet, no reporters outside her building. But that almost scares her more. It means all of the attention is pointed at him, and she is just the shadow beside him that no one can quite track down yet. She is on her way home when an unfamiliar black sedan pulls up to the curb. The driver's window rolls down, and a man in a suit leans over. Miss Tran, he asks. His voice is polite, but has that firm note that says he is used to people doing what he asks. Dr. Cole would like to see you at his office, if you have a moment. The rational part of her brain screams that she should run, that she has spent months trying to get anyone in that building to listen to her about Daniel, and now the most powerful person inside it is summoning her like this is some chess move. But another part of her, the part that is tired of doors closing in her face, straightens its spine. She nods and gets in. The ride to Cole Heart Institute is short and silent. Through the tinted window, Manhattan blurs by, all glass and steel and scaffolding. When she steps out, her sneakers squeak slightly on the polished floor of the private elevator. The driver punches a code and the door slides shut, carrying her up past the public floors, past the clinics and surgical suites, to an executive level she has never seen. Adrian's office looks like a magazine spread. Floor-to-ceiling windows, shelves of medical journals and awards, a framed photo of him in scrubs beside an older woman with the same eyes. Both of them grinning in front of a surgical team. He is standing by the window when she enters, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. For the first time, he looks less like a billionaire myth and more like a man who has not slept much. Thank you for coming, he says, gesturing to a chair. His voice is calm, but he watches her closely, as if he is measuring every reaction. Mia stays standing. I did not realize I had a choice, she answers. Your driver said it like an order, not a question. A corner of his mouth twitches, almost a smile, but it does not reach his eyes. Fair enough, he says. Sit or do not sit, whatever makes you more comfortable. We have a problem, Miss Tran, and I think we can help each other with it. There it is, the shift from last night's pretend softness to something sharper. You mean your problem? Mia replies. The one with the headlines. He picks up a tablet from his desk and tilts it so she can see. The same photos glare back at her, along with comments and speculation. If this spins out of control, the board will use it to push their own agenda, he explains. They have been wanting leverage on me for a while. They prefer that I marry into a certain investor family and settle down in a way that benefits them. He sets the tablet down with a quiet click. You appearing at my side last night gave me a card to play. I would like to make that official in a controlled way. Mia's pulse spikes. Official how? She asks slowly, even though the shape of his answer is already forming in the back of her mind. A deal, Adrian says. A contract. For a fixed period of time, you would be my public fiancée. We would attend events together. You would live in my penthouse, so that the story appears real. In return, you would be compensated very well, and your financial burdens would be addressed. He says it like he already knows she is drowning, like he can see the overdue notices printed on her skin. Anger and hope crash into each other inside her chest. You do not even know me, she says. You do not know what my burdens are. I know enough, he answers. Quietly. I asked human resources to pull your file from the catering company. I know you work 3 jobs. I know you have significant medical debt tied to a family member. I know you are smart enough not to have sold your story to the press in the last 12 hours. The mention of medical debt hits her like a punch. She tries not to show it. You want me to pretend to love you so you can win a power struggle with your board, Mia says. You want me to move into your world and smile for cameras like this is some fairy tale. Why me, when you could hire an actress or pull someone from your own circle who understands these games? Adrian's jaw tightens. Because they would be playing by the same rules as the board, he says. Because you already know how to pretend in order to survive, and you are not impressed by money. You looked at me last night like I was a problem, not a prize. That is exactly what I need. He steps closer, but not too close, careful to give her space. Here is what I am offering. 6 months. During that time, I will pay off your medical debt in full and set up a scholarship fund in your family's name. You will not be asked to do anything illegal or degrading. You simply have to stand by my side and let the world believe I chose you. Mia hears the words, hears the numbers he names next, a figure that makes her heart stumble. 6 months of pretending for a chance to finally breathe, to finally push back against a system that crushed her brother. 6 months in the lion's den, living with the very man whose signature is on the paperwork that haunts her. It is madness. It is also the first real leverage she has ever been offered. Mia takes a slow breath and looks him in the eye. Fine, she says. I will pretend to be with you. But I have my own conditions. Adrian studies her like he is not used to anyone pushing back once he has laid out an offer. There is a quick flash of interest in his eyes, like this is the part he was hoping to get to. All right, he says. What are your conditions, Miss Tran? Mia keeps her chin up, even though her palms are damp. First, she says, this ends in 6 months. No extensions, no fine print. When it is over, you do not follow me. You do not send people to watch me. You do not try to hold this over my head. He nods once. Agreed. Second, she continues, there is nothing physical in this contract. No requirement to share a bed. No expectation beyond what is necessary to make the relationship look believable in public. If I say no to something, that is the end of it. This time, he does not answer immediately. His jaw tightens, and he looks down at the desk, at the stack of papers sitting there like they have been waiting for her. You have my word, he says finally. We will write it in explicitly. Mia forces herself not to look away. Third, the scholarship fund. You said you would set one up in my family's name. I wanted to go specifically to students who grew up like I did. First generation, low income. People who would never be in this building unless they were scrubbing floors or pushing carts. A muscle in his cheek jumps, but he nods. Done, he says. We will have my legal team draft a foundation charter. You will get approval on the language before anything is filed. There is one more condition burning the tip of her tongue, the one tied to Daniel's chart and the unanswered questions that keep her awake. She cannot show that card yet, so she softens it, wraps it in something that sounds almost harmless. And one more thing, Mia says. If I am going to stand next to you, I want permission to see more of this place than the ballroom. I want access to your free clinic downstairs, to sit in on patient support programs, to understand what you actually do besides fundraisers. Call it research, so that when I smile for the cameras, I am not completely lying. Adrian's eyes lift to hers, sharp and searching, like he is trying to see through that answer to whatever is underneath. You want to see the clinic, he repeats slowly. Yes, she says, holding his gaze. And maybe the patient advocacy department. And if people ask me why I am with you, I would like at least one real thing to say. He leans back in his chair, then lets out a breath that sounds almost like a laugh, but not quite. You negotiate like a lawyer, he says. Fine. You can shadow at the clinic 1 day a week during those 6 months. I will tell the director to expect you. He reaches for the folder that has been sitting on his desk and opens it. Inside is a printed contract, already filled with blanks for her name and address. My attorney anticipated most of this, he says. The no physical intimacy clause, the fixed term, the debt repayment. They have done something like this before. The thought that this is not new to him makes her stomach twist, but she pushes it aside and focuses on the paper in front of her. The language is dense but clear. 6 months, a detailed payment schedule, a line about the scholarship, a line about the penthouse. Everything is spelled out in cold, black ink. He picks up a pen and slides it toward her. You should have your own lawyer look this over. he says quietly. Even if this is just a business arrangement, I would prefer it to be a fair one. The mention of a lawyer makes her think of the cheap office she has visited twice, the way the man behind the desk sighed when he saw the hospital name and shook his head at the odds. I will have someone read it. She lies, because the truth is that she cannot afford another consultation fee. Instead, she reads every line herself, lips moving slightly as she traces the words. After what feels like an hour, she signs. Her name looks small on the thick paper. Adrian signs his own name beneath it with a practiced hand. When they are done, he closes the folder and locks it in a drawer. There is one more thing we need before this becomes real to the outside world, he says. Symbolism matters to people who read headlines. He checks his watch, then picks up his jacket. Come on. 10 minutes later, they are standing in a small jewelry store squeezed between a deli and a dry cleaner 2 blocks from the hospital. It smells like metal polish and old carpet. A bored clerk looks up as the bell on the door jingles, then does a double take when they recognize Adrian's face. He does not ask for anything fancy, does not point to the diamond cases sparkling under lights. Instead, he asks to see the simple rings in a glass tray by the register, the ones in small velvet slots with modest price tags. Mia watches him pick up a thin band of silver with a tiny stone set in the center. It is not cheap by her standards, but next to the other pieces in the store, it might as well be invisible. This will do, he says. Outside, a photographer pretends to check his phone, camera hanging from his neck. The story is already writing itself. Adrian takes the ring, hesitates for a half second, then slips it onto her finger. His hand is steady. Mia's is not. The metal is cool against her skin, the weight of it surprisingly real. There, he says softly, just for her. Now the world has something shiny to focus on while we figure out what we are really doing. That night, Mia stands in front of her open closet in her basement apartment, staring at the few clothes hanging there and the single suitcase on the floor. 6 months, she thinks, touching the new ring with her thumb. 6 months living in a billionaire doctor's penthouse, walking in and out of the building that holds the answers to the question that has been eating her alive. She zips the suitcase and takes one last look at the taped rent envelope and the folder on the table. Then she turns off the light and walks out, leaving her old life in the dark behind her. The penthouse feels like a different planet. When Mia steps out of the private elevator, the doors slide shut behind her with a soft hiss, sealing her old life downstairs. The space is all glass and clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over Manhattan like a postcard. The ceilings are high enough to stack her entire basement apartment on top of itself and still have room. Her suitcase looks ridiculous on the polished hardwood floor, a scuffed little rectangle in a world of smooth surfaces. Adrian is already there, having come ahead to meet with his house manager, a woman in her 50s named Elena who has the kind eyes of someone who has seen everything and is not impressed by any of it. Mia, this is Elena, Adrian says. She keeps this place from falling apart when I forget that human beings need more than coffee and surgery schedules. Elena smiles and reaches out to shake Mia's hand. It is nice to meet you, dear, she says. Do not let this one work himself into an early grave. He listens to you. I can tell already. Mia almost laughs at that idea, but Adrian just shakes his head with a small, fond sigh, like he is used to being ganged up on by people who care about him more than he knows how to handle. He shows Mia to a bedroom down the hall from his. It is bigger than her entire apartment, with a bed that looks like a cloud and a closet that echoes when she opens it. There is a bathroom with a bathtub deep enough to swim in. You can decorate however you like, he says. If you need clothes for events, my assistant can schedule some stylist appointments. Use whatever makes this feel less like a hotel and more like a home. Home. The word sticks in her throat. Thank you, she says instead, clutching the handle of her suitcase. The first week moves in a blur. There are fittings with patient stylists who pretend not to notice that Mia flinches at price tags. There are lessons in which fork to use at formal dinners and how to move through a room like she belongs there. Elena teaches her how to work the complicated coffee machine without flooding the kitchen. Late one night, Mia wakes to the sound of footsteps and low voices. She creeps to the edge of the hallway and sees Adrian in the living room, still in his scrubs, sitting on the couch with his head in his hands while Elena hands him a mug of tea. You cannot save all of them, Elena says gently. You know that. I am not trying to save all of them, he replies. Just the ones they will not pay for. It is a glimpse of a man who is not just a smooth headline. It lodges itself somewhere deep inside her, right next to the burning anger she carries for what happened to Daniel. 2 weeks in, the first big test of their arrangement arrives in the form of another gala. This one at a downtown hotel, for donors who want to see the new wing that will bear their names. The car ride there is quiet. Mia smooths her hand down the front of her navy dress, feeling the unfamiliar weight of silk. The ring on her finger catches the light from the city as it passes by. Are you ready? Adrian asks as they pull up to the flashing cameras. No, she answers honestly. But I will do it anyway. He smiles, small and real. That is all I can ask. They step out into the storm of flashes together, his hand finding hers with practiced ease. The reporters shout questions, most of them about the new wing, some of them about her. Dr. Cole, is this the woman from the hospital gala? How long have you two been together? Is it serious? Adrian does not flinch. This is Mia, he says simply. Yes, she is important to me. Yes, I am serious about the work we are doing together here. Inside the ballroom, the air is full of expensive perfume and murmured deals. At their table, a board member named Bennett, with a perfect tie and a practiced smile, looks Mia up and down like she is a puzzle piece he did not order. So, Mia, Bennett says loudly, just as the conversation around them quiets. Where did you and Adrian meet? I do not believe you are in our usual social circles. The way he says "our" makes it clear which side of the line he thinks she stands on. Mia feels the heat crawl up her neck, but before she can answer, Adrian sets down his glass. You are right, Bennett, he says. She is not in your circle. That is one of the reasons I like her. The table goes very still. Bennett gives a tight laugh. I only mean that Adrian has a certain reputation. People might be surprised to see him with someone who serves champagne instead of owning stock in the company. The insult hangs there, thinly veiled. Mia feels every eye on her. Months ago, she would have let it slide, swallowed it to keep her job. Now, with cameras nearby and a contract in a locked drawer, she knows her silence will read like agreement. So she forces herself to meet Bennett's gaze. I have served champagne in rooms like this, she says calmly. I have also watched family members wait in emergency rooms for hours because they did not have the right insurance card. If I am going to stand next to Adrian while he asks for money, I want to make sure some of it reaches the people who only ever see this hospital from the back entrance. A murmur rolls through the table. Adrian looks at her like he is seeing a new angle of light. That is exactly why she is here, he says firmly. Because she reminds me who this place is supposed to serve. Later, when the speeches are done and the band plays something slow, Adrian holds out his hand. We should dance, he says. It will look strange if we do not. On the dance floor, under soft lights, his hand settles at her waist, her other hand rests against his shoulder. For a moment, the noise of the room fades, and it is just the rhythm of their steps and the steady beat of his heart under her palm. It feels dangerously easy, like something she could fall into without meaning to. She pulls back slightly, clearing her throat. Do you always rescue people from rude men with investment portfolios? She asks. Only the ones who deserve it, he replies. You did well tonight. When they return to the penthouse, the city is a blur of lights below them. Mia reaches for her earrings, ready to retreat to her room, but Adrian stops her with a small gesture. Wait, he says. He walks to a shelf and takes down a small velvet box. I wanted to give you this earlier, but it felt too on the nose before you saw the clinic. He opens the box, and inside is a stethoscope, black tubing, polished chest piece, initials engraved in tiny letters along the metal. This belonged to my mother, he says quietly. She was a doctor too. She wore it in free clinics long before my father could afford to buy a building. I want you to have it. You asked to understand what we really do. Maybe this will help you remember who you are doing it for. Mia touches the cool metal, throat tight. A symbol, she thinks. A piece of his past placed in her hands. She takes it, feeling the weight settle on top of everything else she carries. She thanks him, voice barely steady, then escapes to her room. Later that night, when the penthouse is dark and Adrian's door is closed, Mia sits on the edge of her bed with the stethoscope around her neck and her laptop open. Using the limited access her new status gives her, she logs into the hospital's internal portal and types the name that has been etched into her bones since the night everything fell apart. Daniel Tran. A list of records appears. One of them has a surgeon of record she expected. One of them, a scanned authorization, has a signature she has seen in ink on contracts and press releases and framed awards. Adrian Cole. Her vision blurs for a second as the two symbols weigh against each other. The man who put his mother's stethoscope in her hands, and the man whose name is written beside her brother's final surgery. For a long moment, Mia just stares at the screen, at the digital signature that matches the one she watched glide across the bottom of her contract, each letter underlined with the same confidence. Adrian Cole, authorizing the procedure that ended with Daniel in a body bag. Her fingers hover over the trackpad, numb. The stethoscope around her neck feels heavier with every breath, its metal pressing into her collarbone like a question. She scrolls, forcing herself to read through the clinical language, pre-operative assessment, risk factors, consent obtained, complications, time of death. It is all there, reduced to lines in a file, neat and detached. There is nothing about how Daniel joked with her about hospital food, or how he asked if she would bring his favorite snack when he woke up. The portal logs her activity at the top of the screen, timestamp and user identification. She realizes with a jolt that she is not invisible here. Someone could see that Adrian Cole's fiancé is digging around in old charts. She logs out, slams the laptop shut, and sits very still in the darkness, heart pounding so hard she can hear it through the inherited stethoscope. The next day stretched taut, like a wire pulled too tight. In public, Mia plays her part. She walks beside Adrian through hospital corridors while staff pretend not to stare. She attends strategy meetings where board members talk about wings and profit margins like they are choosing toppings for a pizza instead of deciding who lives and who is turned away. Privately, she begins using every sliver of access her role gives her to learn how this place really works. At the free clinic, she sits in on intake days, listening as mothers explain that they have skipped their own medications to afford their children's, as elderly patients apologize for being sick. Adrian moves from room to room with that intense focus she has seen only in glimpses, talking to each person like they are the only one in the building. He does not see Mia watching from the doorway when he stays late to fill out extra forms himself, trying to bend protocols enough to squeeze one more person into a charity slot. It does not erase the signature in Daniel's chart, but it complicates the shape of her anger until it is hard to tell where rage ends and something like reluctant respect begins. Meanwhile, the outside world keeps circling. Social media accounts dedicated to hospital gossip repost photos of Mia entering and leaving the penthouse, speculate about her background, argue over whether she is a gold digger or a real-life Cinderella. At breakfast one morning, Adrian scrolls through a news site on his tablet and frowns. Then he turns the screen toward her. An article headline blares, anonymous lawsuit filed against Cole Heart Institute over death of teen patient. Mia feels the blood drain from her face. The article is light on details, but it mentions that the plaintiff is a family member who cannot afford private care and that the case hinges on alleged negligence during a cardiac surgery. It could be any number of stories, she tells herself, but she knows it is not. She recognizes the phrasing the lawyer used when he emailed the initial filing. "My board is going to love this," Adrian says dryly, rubbing a hand over his jaw. "They have been waiting for something they can spin as a liability I brought on with my reforms." The timing is very convenient. He does not look at her with suspicion. He looks tired, frustrated, angry at faceless forces. Guilt slams into her chest so hard, she has to grip her coffee mug to keep her hands from shaking. She has wanted the hospital to answer for Daniel. She just did not anticipate doing it while eating oatmeal across from the man who is suddenly fighting on two fronts. That night, when he comes home later than usual, there is a stiffness in his shoulders she has not seen before. He throws his tie onto the counter and opens the refrigerator, staring into it like he cannot remember what he is looking for. "Board meeting went well, I take it," Mia says carefully, leaning against the island. He snorts softly. "If by well you mean they implied that I am a liability to my own hospital and suggested I let our legal team quietly bury this lawsuit, then yes, it was fantastic." He shuts the refrigerator and looks at her, eyes darker than usual. "They want me to publicly distance myself from anything that looks messy. That includes charity cases and unvetted people in my personal life." She knows exactly what that means. This arrangement, the story they have built. Part of her wants to say, "Good, let it burn. Maybe then you will feel a fraction of what we felt." Another part cannot stand the exhaustion etched into his face. "What did you tell them?" she asks. Adrian lifts his chin. "I told them I will cooperate with any internal review that does not involve scapegoating residents or hiding evidence," he says. "And I told them that my personal life is not on the table for discussion." He hesitates, then adds quietly, "The last time a lawsuit like this came across my desk, I did not push hard enough when they said it was just a tragic outcome. I will not make that mistake again." The words hit her like a sharp inhale of cold air. She swallows hard. The room feels suddenly too small. "Adrian," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "There is something I need to tell you about why I came to this hospital in the first place." The confession sits right there, balanced on the edge of her tongue. She is ready to say Daniel's name, to slam his file down on the counter between them, to demand answers from the man who straddles both sides of her grief. Before she can continue, his phone rings on the counter, loud and insistent. He glances at the screen, and his face shifts into professional mode. Trauma team, he says. Mass casualty on the freeway. I have to go. He grabs his keys and heads for the door, pausing only long enough to squeeze her shoulder. Hold that thought. We will talk when I get back. The door closes behind him, and the moment shatters. Mia stands alone in the immaculate kitchen, the words she almost said echoing uselessly in the air. By the time he returns at dawn, smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion, collapsing on the couch without even taking off his shoes, the window for that conversation feels like it has slammed shut. The day the lawsuit goes public, another article appears, this one more vicious. An unnamed source suggests that the plaintiff has intimate access to the hospital through Adrian's fiancée. A rumor begins to curl around her name like smoke, and somewhere in the building, board members start to connect us that Mia has been praying would stay scattered. The storm hits on a Wednesday. Mia wakes to Elena knocking gently on her door, her voice more serious than usual. Dear, you might want to turn on the television, Elena says. Channel 5. Mia's stomach drops at the tone. She grabs the remote and flicks on the flat screen mounted on the wall. A news anchor appears, the hospital logo over her shoulder. The headline bar reads, Cole Heart Institute faces wrongful death lawsuit. Questions raised about conflict of interest. A photo of Adrian flashes on the screen, then a blurred image of Mia and Adrian leaving the penthouse together, their hands almost touching. The anchor's voice is smooth but sharp. While the hospital faces accusations from the family of a deceased teen patient, she says, sources tell us that the plaintiff may have a personal connection to Dr. Cole's fiancée, raising concerns about whether confidential information has been compromised. Mia feels cold all over. It is vague enough that they have not said her name, but specific enough that anyone digging even a little could find it. Her phone explodes with messages she does not open. A minute later, Adrian appears in her doorway, tie half knotted, eyes blazing. Emergency board meeting, he says tersely. They want us both there. Us. Not just him, not just the great Dr. Cole. The fiancé has been upgraded from accessory to potential liability. The boardroom on the top floor has the same cold elegance as the rest of the building, but today it feels like a courtroom. Long table, leather chairs, a wall of windows that shows the city. Glittering, oblivious. Cameras from the hospital's internal media team are set up in the corner, ready to capture the leadership's reassuring statement for staff and shareholders. Adrian stands at one end of the table, shoulders squared, while the board members file in, their faces carefully arranged into concerned expressions. Bennett takes a seat near the middle, his tie perfect, his eyes sharp. Mia sits in a chair slightly behind Adrian, not quite at the table, not quite out of the room. She feels like a prop that has been pulled out of place. The board chair, a woman with silver hair and a voice like glass, clears her throat. Dr. Cole, she says. Thank you for coming on such short notice. As you know, the lawsuit has become public. We are preparing a response, but there are complicating factors we must address. Her gaze slides to Mia, then back to him. An anonymous tip came in late last night. It appears that your fiancé has a direct connection to the plaintiff. The room goes very still. Mia's heart slams against her ribs. Adrian's jaw tightens. Anonymous tips are not evidence, he says. If you have something to say it plainly. Bennett taps a folder in front of him, the sound loud in the silence. The deceased teen at the heart of this lawsuit is named Daniel Tran, he says, savoring each syllable. The plaintiff is his older sister. Full name, Mia Tran. Same address as the one on your fiancé's contract, same employment history, same everything. It appears, Dr. Cole, that the woman you brought into your home under the pretense of a relationship is suing your hospital. He turns, smiling thinly at Mia. Or perhaps it was the other way around. Perhaps she came here first. A few of the board members murmur, some in shock, some in satisfaction. Adrian looks at Mia, really looks at her, his eyes searching her face for a denial, an explanation, anything. Is that true, he asks. His voice is low, but it cuts through the room. There is no way to soften it now, no way to hide. Mia straightens, fingers curling around the arm of her chair. Yes, she says, her voice steady even as everything inside her shakes. Daniel Tran was my brother. He died after a surgery in this hospital. I filed the lawsuit. I did not come here because of you. I came here because no one would listen when I said something was wrong. The board chair leans back, folding her hands. And when you realized you could get close to Dr. Cole, she says, you saw an opportunity to gain access to confidential information and leverage your case. You misrepresented yourself to this institution. That is grounds for termination of any contract and possible legal action. Rage flares in Mia's chest. I misrepresented myself, she repeats. Your hospital billed my family for a surgery that killed my brother and then told us we were lucky you tried. When I asked for answers, your legal team stonewalled me. So yes, I took the chance to get inside, because from the outside all I ever got was a locked door. Adrian's face is unreadable now, the careful control she has seen in the operating room. Why did you not tell me? He asks quietly. Why did you sign that contract, move into my home, stand next to me, knowing who I was to your family? His question is not about the hospital. It is about them, whatever them even means. Because when I tried to tell anyone the truth, they made it sound like I was crazy, she says, the words tumbling out. Because you are the man whose name is on my brother's death certificate, and you are also the only person in this building who seems to care when the board treats patients like numbers. I needed to know which version was real. Bennett cuts in before she can say more. This is precisely why fraternizing with staff is dangerous, Adrian, he announces, turning to the cameras now. Look at what it has done. The integrity of our processes is in question. The board cannot, in good conscience, allow this personal entanglement to jeopardize the hospital. He turns his head toward Mia. Effective immediately, your engagement to Dr. Cole is considered dissolved in the eyes of this institution. Your access badge will be deactivated. Security will escort you from the premises after this meeting. The words land like a series of blows. Dissolved. Escort. Jeopardize. Adrian opens his mouth like he is about to argue, then closes it again. He looks at Mia, hurt and betrayal flickering across his features. Was any of it real? He asks, the cameras forgotten for a moment. Or, was I just a way into the file room for you? There is a split second where Mia could lie, could say she never felt anything, could turn all of this into a clean cut. But she is so tired of lying, of pretending. Both, she says softly, the truth landing between them like a fragile thing. At first, you were a way to get answers. Somewhere along the way, you became more than that. I did not plan that part. I did not know what to do with it. The board chair raps her knuckles on the table. This is not the place for a lover's quarrel, she says sharply. Public relations is waiting for a statement. Dr. Cole, you will read what we have prepared. We will frame this as an unfortunate misunderstanding with a grieving family. The sooner we contain this, the better. A security guard appears at the door, a silent, hulking reminder that they are done here. Mia stands slowly. Her legs feel hollow. She slips the simple silver ring off her finger, the one that came from a cramped jewelry store and not a luxury showroom, and sets it on the edge of the table near Adrian's hand. The stethoscope stays around her neck. You wanted the truth, she says, her voice rough. Now you have it. Do not let them bury it this time. Then she turns and walks out of the boardroom under the watchful eyes of the people who run this place, the cameras recording, the city sprawling beyond the glass, and somewhere behind her, a man she never meant to care about trying to decide whether he is more angry about the lie that brought her here or the truth that might finally tear his world apart. In the days after Mia walks out of the boardroom, the penthouse feels hollow. Adrian moves through it like a ghost, the walls echoing with what was said and what was not. The silver ring sits on his nightstand where he dropped it after finding it in his pocket, a small circle of metal that suddenly weighs more than any of his framed awards. At the hospital, the board launches what they call an internal review. In practice, it looks a lot like a hunt for scapegoats. Memos go out about tightening access and reaffirming trust in leadership. Whispers swirl in corridors. Some say Adrian has been blinded by a pretty face from the wrong side of town. Others say he has always been too soft on charity cases and that this is the inevitable result. He keeps his face neutral and his answers vague. But inside, something has cracked open. On a late night in his office, long after most of the staff have gone home, Adrian sits at his desk with the lights off, the glow from his computer screen the only illumination. He has access that Mia never did, super user privileges, archived data, audit logs going back years. He opens Daniel Tran's file, the one he has avoided since the day legal told him to sign a statement and let it go. The clinical notes appear first, the same sterile language Mia read, but he clicks deeper, pulling up the raw operating room logs, the timestamps, the electronic signatures. He scrolls slowly, his eyes tracing every entry. The schedule shows that on the day of Daniel's surgery, Adrian was supposed to be covering another case in a different wing during the same hour. The authorization form, however, bears his digital signature time stamped in the middle of Daniel's procedure. That is not possible. In order to sign, he would have needed to be logged into a specific terminal, one located in his office, which the security logs say he never entered that day. His pulse picks up. He cross-checks the login records, the card swipe data, the camera stills from the hallway outside his door. The deeper he digs, the clearer the pattern becomes. Someone used his credentials to approve a high-risk surgery for a patient whose insurance barely covered the basics, pushed through a procedure that should have been delayed, and when it went wrong, let his name absorb the blame while the decision-makers behind it stayed insulated. One name keeps coming up in the pre-operative notes and internal emails. Dr. Harris, the senior surgeon Bennett has always backed, the one the board praises for maximizing throughput. Adrian leans back, nausea rising. Mia was right. Something was wrong. Not just with Daniel's case, but with the system that decided risk was acceptable when profit was involved. For the first time, the weight of his family name feels less like an inheritance and more like a weapon he has allowed others to use for too long. He prints everything, the logs, the security reports, the emails, a stack of paper that tells a story the board will do anything to bury. The next step is the hardest. He finds the contact information for Mia's attorney in the lawsuit documents and makes a call. The man on the other end is wary at first, but when Adrian explains what he has found and offers to provide it as evidence, the tone shifts from suspicion to stunned caution. "You understand what you are doing, Dr. Cole," the lawyer says slowly. "If you testify to this, you will be going against your own institution, your own board." Adrian looks out the window at the city lights and thinks of his mother's stethoscope around Mia's neck, of Daniel Tran's name on a report that treated him like a line item. "If I stay silent," he says, "I am going against my patients." That was never supposed to be the deal. When the public hearing comes, it is held in a neutral downtown chamber, but it feels like another operating room. Bright lights, raised platform, a gallery full of observers. The hospital has sent its lawyers and a carefully worded written statement. Mia is there with her attorney and her mother, who clutches a worn tissue in one hand and a photograph of Daniel in the other. She does not look at Adrian when he arrives in a dark suit, no tie, jaw set. She has not spoken to him since the board meeting, and she does not know yet whether he is here as an enemy, a witness, or something in between. The panel calls the first witnesses. Experts talk about standard of care, risk profiles, consent forms. The hospital's representative insists that everything was done within accepted parameters. It sounds precise and bloodless. Then the clerk calls, Dr. Adrian Cole. There is a ripple through the room. Adrian walks to the stand, raises his right hand, and swears to tell the truth. For a man who has given hundreds of speeches, his throat feels dry. He begins with facts, his role at the hospital, his responsibilities, his knowledge of internal processes. Then the lawyer for Mia's side asks the question that matters. "Dr. Cole, did you personally authorize the final surgical plan for Daniel Tran's operation on the date in question?" Adrian looks down at the stack of documents. In front of him, his own name printed again and again. He looks up at the panel, then at the row where Mia sits, back straight, stethoscope just visible under the collar of her modest jacket. "No," he says clearly. "I did not. My signature was used without my direct approval. And I have evidence that this was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern in which financial considerations influenced which high-risk cases were pushed through." A collective breath sucks in. The hospital lawyer tries to object, but Adrian is not finished. "I am here today not as the face of Cole Heart Institute," he continues, "but as a physician who took an oath to do no harm. Hiding behind legal language while a family is denied the truth about how their son died is a violation of that oath. If that means I am no longer fit to lead this hospital, then so be it." In the gallery, reporters scribble furiously. Someone whispers his words into a live feed. Mia's hand closes around the photograph of Daniel, so tightly the edges bend. For the first time since she filed the lawsuit, she feels something like the ground shifting in her favor. What happens next does not unfold in one dramatic swoop, but in a series of decisions that slowly tilt the balance. The hearing triggers a formal investigation by state regulators. Adrian hands over every document he dug up, and once one thread is pulled, others begin to unravel. Emails surface showing Dr. Harris pressuring junior staff to push high-risk patients through in order to hit revenue targets. Audit logs reveal that Adrian's credentials were not the only ones misused. The story hits national news. For a few tense weeks, Cole Heart Institute is not a gleaming symbol of innovation, but a cautionary tale about what happens when profit and power go unchecked. Under pressure, the board announces a settlement with Mia's family. It is not just money, although the compensation will finally wipe out the crushing debt that has shadowed her mother. It comes with something Mia fought harder for than any check. A formal admission of failure in Daniel's case. A written apology, signed by the institution, that says his name and the words, "We were wrong," in the same paragraph. And a binding agreement to restructure the hospital's charity care program under independent oversight. Dr. Harris resigns under a cloud. Bennett quietly steps down from the board with a statement about pursuing other opportunities. Adrian does something more public. In a press conference held in the same auditorium where he once unveiled new wings and research grants, he announces that he is stepping down as chief executive officer. Cameras flash. Reporters shout questions. He answers the ones that matter. "Leadership is not about protecting your title at all costs," he says, the microphone's picking up every word. "If I have to choose between my position and the trust of the patients who walk through our doors, I will choose the patients every time. I will continue to practice medicine, but I will do it without the weight of this office between me and the people I serve." He donates a significant portion of his shares to establish an independent foundation in Daniel's name, dedicated to funding cardiac care for children and teens whose families cannot afford it. The board, battered by public scrutiny, has little choice but to agree. Months pass. The media cycle moves on to other scandals. The hospital gets a new interim chief executive officer. New compliance policies come down. In a modest classroom at a city college, Mia sits at a desk with a stethoscope around her neck and a stack of textbooks in front of her. She is taking night classes in preparation for a physician assistant program, surrounded by other students who work by day and chase degrees by night. When she finishes a late study session, She walks past the community clinic that used to be a footnote under the hospital's banner. Now a new sign hangs over the door. Adrian Tran Community Cardiac Clinic. Her brother's name in clean, bold letters, lit against the evening sky. Inside, the waiting room is full, but there is less tension in the air than the last time she sat in a place like this. The payment desk has a sign that says, "No one will be turned away for inability to pay." Mia steps in to drop off some volunteer forms she promised the clinic coordinator. She does not expect to see him. Adrian is standing near the nurse's station, in dark scrubs, hair a little longer than before, laughing softly with a teenager who is showing him something on a phone. He looks lighter, somehow. A man who has put down a crown that was never meant to be worn in the operating room. When he turns and notices her, the world seems to narrow for a second. The last time they were this close, there were board members and cameras and words said in anger hanging between them. Now there is only the hum of the clinic, the murmur of patients, the squeak of sneakers on linoleum. "Mia," he says, her name careful and full at the same time. "I heard you were volunteering here. I was not sure if you would want to talk to me." She considers that honestly. "I was not sure either," she admits. There is no contract now, no script written by lawyers, no obligation to pretend anything at all. Just two people who have seen each other at their worst and are still standing. "You did not have to do what you did," she says. "Most people in your position would have stayed quiet and let the lawyers bury us." Adrian shakes his head. "I had to," he replies. "Once I knew the truth, staying silent would have made me the man you were afraid I was. I am sorry it took me so long to see it. I am sorry for the way you were treated here. And I am sorry that I did not listen when you tried to tell me something was wrong." The apologies land gently, but they still sting, reopening a space that could either scar over or heal clean. "I am sorry too," Mia says after a moment. "I came into your life with an agenda, and I lied by omission longer than I should have. I hurt you, even if I did not mean to." There is a quiet between them that is not empty this time. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small box, not the showy kind from a luxury jeweler, but the plain cardboard one from a local artisan shop. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything," he says. "You owe me nothing. But there is something I have been holding on to, and if you are willing, I would like to give it to you." He opens the box. Inside is a simple band, not flashy, brushed metal with a tiny engraving on the inside. No more pretending. The words are small, but they hit with the force of everything they have been through. "This is not a contract," Adrian says quickly. "It is not part of a deal. It is just a promise that if you choose to be in my life, it will be as yourself. No more roles, no more scripts. We will be two people figuring it out one honest step at a time. If you would rather walk away, I will still spend the rest of my career making sure what happened to your brother does not happen to someone else." Mia takes the ring out of the box and turns it between her fingers. Months ago, the idea of tying herself in any way to this man, to this hospital, would have felt like betrayal. Now, with Daniel's name over the clinic door and a room full of patients who would have been turned away before, it feels like something else. Not erasure of what happened, but a continuation of what they fought for. "I cannot forget who you were to my brother," she says quietly. "But I also cannot ignore who you chose to be after you knew the truth. Maybe that is what real change looks like. Not clean, not easy, but real." She slips the ring onto her finger. It fits as if it was made for her. Adrian lets out a breath he did not know he was holding. Around them, the clinic continues its steady rhythm. Nurses call names. Children laugh softly at a cartoon playing on a screen. Somewhere, a heart monitor beeps in a calm, regular pattern. Mia looks down at the stethoscope resting against her chest, at the ring on her hand, at the sign outside the window with Daniel's name on it. "You once begged me to pretend I was with you," she says. "I think I am finally ready to say yes without pretending." He smiles, and this time there is no audience, no cameras, no board to appease. Just a man and a woman who have walked through a fire and found, on the other side, something worth rebuilding. As they step back into the hallway together, side by side, the story that began with a lie becomes something else entirely. Not a fairy tale about a billionaire rescuing a girl from the wrong side of town, but a truer story about two people using the worst thing that happened to them to build something better for everyone who comes after. In a city that often confuses status with worth, their quiet choice is a reminder that real leadership and real love are not about titles or headlines. They are about what you are willing to risk to do what is right, even when it costs you the life you thought you wanted.